Let's get started. Welcome to the fourth day of the International Seminar on Food and Nutrition Security in Africa. And this is hosted by the Natural Resources Institute at University of Greenwich. Today, the Early Career Researchers session welcomes students and established researchers alike to share experience on interdisciplinary research and partnerships and turning research to action beyond academia. Thanks. My name is June Po, and along with Dr. Fiorella Piccioni and Dr. Marcos Parado Perez, we are the co-organizers for this session. Just a reminder before we start, please mute your mics if you're not speaking, and if you have internet connection issues, turn your video camera off can help. This session will be recorded and made available after the session to registrants. The aim of today's session is to be a first engagement event for students and early career researchers across NRI and African university partners that are part of the Food and Nutrition Security Initiative, and to share experiences that we find in our work between natural sciences and social sciences, and also to gather inputs of what we want to see in a supportive network for early career researchers across the partners. We are very grateful today to have 4 wonderful speakers. I'll introduce our speakers for theme 1, and Marcos will introduce speakers for theme 2. For the rest of the 90 minutes, speakers will give 10-minute presentations followed by a short question and answer period. Then we'll move to a breakout groups discussion for 15 minutes and return for sharing and a general discussion on a future early career researchers' activities and network. Just to note that the short Google poll that we have circulated in the one-page ad is still open. And thank you to those who have already filled it. We will put the link again in the chat box here. So if you wish to fill it later, you can access it. Without further ado, let me introduce our speakers for theme 1. Theme 1 is Loss in Translation, engaging in interdisciplinary research and partnerships. Our first speaker is Dr. Frank Chua, who has completed his PhD in development studies at the Natural Resources Institute. He is now a lecturer in rural development and extension at Bunda College of the Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources. Our second speaker is Dr. Alex Chanson. Alex is a researcher at University of Oxford, where he brings his experience from social and ecological research to study conservation science and nature-based solutions. He focuses on capacity strengthening at the individual and organizational level to bridge research, policy, and practice. So Frank, if you could share your screen.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I want to share on the partnering with the powerless in terms of solving wicked problems. And this is based from our experiences from agroecological intensification research that we are conducting in Malawi. As indicated, my name is Frank Chua. So basically, as a matter of background is that when we talk of smallholder agriculture in the sub-Saharan Africa, we are dealing with the farmers who are operating in a complex context in terms of socioeconomic, political, cultural, and biophysical context. And really, these are farmers who are facing what Weber and colleague refer to as the wicked problems. These are problems that are not clear on the cause and effect relationship. They are cross-cutting in terms of affecting multiple stakeholders and perspectives. You cannot solve them at once and for all, so they keep on recurring. And in this case, these problems the farmers are facing are related in terms of access to markets, degradation of resources such as soils, pest and diseases, climate change, the current coronaviruses, and having weak institutions in terms of research and extension. So all these happen at the same time that make farmers face the challenges that they are in. And for a long time, the use of linear approaches have really demonstrated how they have not worked. The solutions when dealing with wicked problems with linear approaches has not worked at all. The technologies have failed to fit the context. Usually farmers don't have the labor, land, and the cash that they require. We see these examples from the Green Revolution when they brought in hybrid varieties of fertilizers and pesticides. Things have not really changed as expected. The use of extension systems that are bureaucratic and expensive, like the transfer of technology through the training and visit by the World Bank, also did not give the results as expected. Farmers still did not adopt the technologies that were being pushed. And it is for these reasons that there is now a call for the agricultural innovation systems, which is calling for us to move beyond just a linkage of research, education, extension, and farmers, but going with the multiple actors and players who are involved in the agricultural systems, going beyond the looking at just at hard technologies such as varieties or chemicals or fertilizers, but really also looking at institutions, the way they affect the agricultural problems, particularly the wicked problems. So this is what everybody's talking about at the moment in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, including Malawi. But generally, as everybody's talking about the agricultural innovation system, there are questions which we need to ask ourselves and answer. For example, is it possible that the IIS can be operationalized in our context, that is the sub-Saharan Africa, where we're facing wicked problems, or it's just a matter of theory that we are talking about? Or can the IIS be effective in addressing the wicked problems that we face in our context? These are the key questions. However, in the talk today, I will not focus on these questions. I want to specifically refer to a question which is referring to the collaboration of multiple actors as advanced by the AIS. But the question is it possible that these multiple actors can collaborate when they have unequal powers? Usually, I'm referring to the power imbalances that may occur between researchers, extension, development partners, the rural elites in the community, as well as the marginalized groups such as women. And these power imbalances may come as a result of the political context, the economic, the culture, the natural context, the institution, and even historical events may have caused these differences in the power. So we are dealing with issues of whose voice, whose ideas, interest, and vision counts when multiple actors collaborate. What are the challenges? Do we have opportunities? These are the questions that I'll basically focus in this brief discussion. I'm drawing these in this discussion from our Malawi experience on the two projects. We have the Maize Legume Best Bets project, which we started in 2015. It's working on soil health innovation using a concept called the Farmer Research Networks, in which researchers, extension workers, farmers, and different actors collaborate to solve soil health problems. I'm also drawing from the Food Systems Project, which is just 1 year old. And this one, we are looking at testing a decision-making tool called AgriFood, which is looking at engaging multiple stakeholders in designing nutrition-sensitive agriculture. And all these projects are funded by the McKnight Foundation. So basically, it's where I want to draw the challenges that we are facing and the opportunities. Now, in terms of challenges, from these projects, when we've tried to interact with multiple actors, the other thing we have learned is that usually there is a limited capacity on our side of people trying to facilitate the interaction, especially when they are marginalized groups. So it's easy to work with the for example, farmers who are elite, they're able to read, they're able to write, as you can see in the picture. But when you're dealing with farmers who cannot read and write, what sort of methods and tools can we effectively engage them as partners in this interaction? And on the other hand, we find that the farmers in the community, especially the marginalized groups, tend to align themselves, take on this dependence syndrome, where when they see players coming from outside, they're always looking up to them to give them solutions. Of course, this is historical. This is what has been happening, and it is carried over. So even if you come in a spirit of interaction and partnering, still the people you want to interact with tend to wear the hat of dependence syndrome. So that's one of the challenges that we are facing. The other challenge is really to the unfavorable institutional landscape that occurs, like in Malawi. We see some policies remaining in the technology transfer model. It's still in the old when we are trying to push for IAS. So for example, we see that we still have what we call the Technology Clearing Committee. And if you look on the table that I've provided with a list of 28 of these technologies, just an extract, you see that the institutions that are giving technologies are only those formal institutions, but in IS, everybody is contributing to knowledge. So how do we deal with such institutions that just recognize formal organization as responsible for releasing technologies? Then we have mandates of organizations. So there are mandates clearly demarcated for, this is for research, developing technologies, this is for extension, disseminating, and everybody works in silos. As a result, coming up with an innovation system where people can partner and share different skills and knowledges beyond the mandate, it becomes a problem. We have a district agriculture extension services system, which we call DICE. It's an extension system that we use. It is kind of a form of innovation platform because it allows different actors to integrate and work together, both from district to the local level, at village level, in the form of what we call the village agriculture committees. And this would apply as a stakeholder panels or innovation platforms. However, the system is in itself not fully functional at the moment, and we still see the technology transfer elements still persisting even in this system, which is supposed to help in carrying out the culture innovation system. So we still, in terms of institutional landscape, is still the TOT still persisting in the institutions. The diverging perspective is another thing that we've observed, especially among actors. So for example, the dilemma in terms of you may want to increase participation of farmers in your on-farm experiments. But the question is, are you going to achieve research rigor? So is it possible to have quality research with many farmers? So the moment you want to increase participation, you tend to compromise on the quality of the research. The moment you want to work on the quality of the research, you also deny other farmers to participate in the process. So in the end, it's quite a dilemma about how best you can engage with the farmers at the lower level, usually due to capacity issues. And then there is a disagreement between the players. You have maybe scientists who are more aligned to the quantitative. Then you have social scientists, the natural scientists to quantitative. We have social scientists more aligned to the qualitative methods. What sort of indicators, what sort of methods should we use in terms of working together and generating solutions? The legitimacy, whose results count? When you have collected data from qualitative or quantitative, or it's a natural scientist or a social scientist, whose results, who's going to have more voice in this collaboration? So you find that usually the traditional disciplines tend to take over the whole process of interaction.
One minute.
The diverging interest is also another issue in terms of different actors will have different interests, as I've put there. Is it, do you want to publish? Do you want to identify options? The farmers will want solutions. Do you want to promote a technology? Do you want to convince financiers or winning projects? Do you want to convince policymakers? Or others want to make profits, or the government would want to just reduce the inflation. All these makes it a challenge in terms of collaboration. And finally is the problem of the affordability of collaboration itself. Is quite expensive because you need several meetings in terms of dialogue and demanding financial resources and time for the actors. The opportunities at the moment do exist. We see that we still have local institutions which we can use. Farmers are motivated. There's interest to integrate IS in our institutions. We are seeing new policies coming in. Even the university is revising its curriculum. We have the example systems thinking in agriculture, a course being introduced, priority given to multidisciplinary proposals and the platform such as this. In conclusion, my observation is that the notion of supporting collaboration of actors in the research remains a promising option to achieving sustainable agricultural development. But what we need is really to understand these processes that influences the way multiple and diverse actors could collaborate to effectively address the wicked problem faced by farmers, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. Zikomo, which is in Chichewa, for thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Frank. That is a very wonderful presentation. Next, we have Alex, who will be talking about the capacity for knowledge co-production. Alex, if you could share your slide.
Yes, can you see them? Oh, no, I need to share my screen. Sorry. I will do that right now. Boom.
Yes.
How about now?
Yes, we can see it clearly.
So thank you for this, Frank, for this wonderful presentation, which overlaps with some of the themes I'll be talking about. And yeah, the need to understand the process of collaboration, how to make it work is key. And although my presentation is in a slightly different setting, I think the lessons that I'll discuss are relevant. So yeah, thanks to June and the organizers for inviting me to speak. I'm going to talk about capacities for transdisciplinary working. I'll explain what that means shortly. And it's focused on the Sentinel project as a case study. And the aim of Sentinel is to produce research on impacts, risks, and trade-offs between the social, economic, and environmental dimensions of agricultural development to inform policy in Ghana, Zambia, Ethiopia. And so it's a collaboration with the UK and those three countries in sub-Saharan Africa. So the core project team is quite diverse. This is a photo from our annual meeting last year in Livingstone, Zambia. And so it's a partnership between academic and development organizations. The lead is IIED in London. And the important point is when I say research team, I'm not just talking about the researchers, I'm talking about this collaborative arrangement with our partners in communications, management, coordination, monitoring, learning, and evaluation. I'm not going to go into wicked problems because we've just discussed that, so you know what they are, but the point is that we need approaches to bridge disciplines, sectors, and different ways of knowing. So in Sentinel, an overarching focus is on capacities for interdisciplinary research and research user engagement and capacities to work more effectively in these partnerships. So we focus on, my work focuses predominantly on individual level capacities, the research team as well. And then we have partners at Roo Forum in Uganda who also do a significant amount of work to work with a cohort of PhD students, as well as early career researchers and staff among their network of partner universities in Africa. So very quickly, and I hope I'm not going too fast, but there's stuff to talk about afterwards. So I just want to clarify that just the way I use terms. So inter and transdisciplinarity are different. We know that multidisciplinarity is about different disciplines working together, but the point is that they don't work, they work in parallel without integration. Interdisciplinarity, as the middle cube represents, is as if these disciplines sort of melt together to create new knowledge and theory. And the way I use transdisciplinarity is about the integration of different knowledge systems So beyond academic knowledge, much like the previous presentation was emphasizing. So knowledge held by research users. In our case, we target policymakers, but this could be applied to farmers or other stakeholders. And then the brace is simply symbolic or a symbol for this weaving, if you will, of different knowledge systems. And in that sense, you can see how Sentinel is trying to emulate what I mean by transdisciplinary partnership, in that it seeks to bridge knowledge across disciplines. And it focuses on these research users that you can see in the in the figure on the right, both in the UK and in our partner countries. And in the UK, for instance, we also have the funders who might want to learn from our work. And knowledge co-production is an important process in both interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research. And it recognizes that relationships and interactions between researchers and research users are important, very important, to achieve the impact of research, as was emphasized in the previous presentation. But the thing is, as I think was just mentioned also, is that these approaches are multifaceted, complex, and it's tough to know what works and why. And Sentinel gives us an opportunity to look at this more closely. So we integrate that in our capacity strengthening work package. And very quickly, I'm just saying that what I'm drawing on today are these tools and methods, which for me represent an integrated approach to both strengthening capacities within our research team, but also to learn from the experience. I won't go into detail here, but if you have questions, we can talk about it. Beyond interviews and to understand the process and to learn from the participants, we have collaborative workshops which allow us to reflect on emerging challenges and opportunities to capture the experience of the project participants. And I'm presenting to you what are a list of emerging insights from the project, but also the literature. First, on individual competencies for working across disciplines and sectors with different stakeholders. And so, for example, acknowledging that it reflects a different way of working to what we may be used to. It's complex, it's uncertain.
Have you brought your bag?
Could you mute? Sorry, June, could you tell them to mute, please?
Yes, could you use your mic, please?
It's complex, uncertain, and it has additional costs, and it requires a patient and open-minded, reflexive. If they don't mute, you can do it manually, I think. Open-minded, reflexive approach that focuses on the process of collaboration. So, willingness to embrace complexity and uncertainty and different ways of knowing. It takes a lot of time, as was mentioned, and it's important to be proactive and to understand your partners also. What are their motivations? What are their constraints? Yeah, I think I'll stop at that for the individual competencies. But focusing on the process is really important to improve the effectiveness of teamwork and internal communication. Next, I want to talk a little bit about some important characteristics of these research partnerships. Again, it's not just among researchers, it's also with our partners in communications, for example. So it's important to instill a sense of mission and pride and to orchestrate expertise and relationships in a way that supports goal achievement. So I put that under leadership. But it's also about shared leadership or diffused leadership, sharing responsibility to improve team cohesion and to really tap into the right skills at the right time. So people should be proactive and say, I have the right skill to do this. It doesn't always have to be, top down with the designated lead, so to speak. It should be a collaborative partnership what I mean by that is that no one discipline or stakeholder should dominate. Now, it's easier said than done, obviously, as was also previously mentioned. For example, in conservation science, often the natural sciences dominate when a lot of the problems we deal with require the insights of social scientists and economists. And power asymmetries hinder collaboration. It's really relevant also in the context of North-South collaborations. We talk a lot about having an equitable partnership, but for that to happen, the project has to be structured to be equitable. And there was a paper that came out this year that emphasized that often, and this is a challenge that we have in Sentinel, to be frank, if the lead accountable institution is in the global north, it challenges shared ownership. So it's just important to be aware of this to come up to find the right solutions to these issues. And an important point is to minimize also another lesson from Sentinel, is to minimize staff turnover where possible. This is a 4-year project, so that's challenging. But the point is that if you have too much rotation, even among the people who work in the field, it challenges the development of working relationships. I'm going to move forward because I'm running out of time. The last point is very important: trust and confidence, to promote the sharing of ideas, to value the contribution of others, and to foster collaboration. And now I just want to focus for the last minute on processes, really important processes that we observe and that we know are key. Projects like Sentinel are diverse by necessity. I think that's clear. We have differences in perspective, values, knowledge, expertise, cognitive frameworks, levels of motivation, needs, so forth. But these are, I'll just mention the points and we can maybe discuss these in more detail later. The first point is you need a lot of interactions. That was mentioned before. You need repeated interactions, face-to-face dialogue. And when you have projects with partners across geographies, that's really challenging, but important to try to do. And importantly, the project itself has to make a lot of space for this dialogue. The willingness to dialogue varies partner to partner. Some just want to get the work done. They don't see the value in just talking, but it's important to do so to develop a shared understanding. And also to find out, what people think is salient and legitimate knowledge. Facilitation, that's an important lesson from Sentinel. These are our messy discussions, and be it about the conceptual framework or what research to do and how to do it. And so if you have a facilitator, like somebody who can broker knowledge, a boundary spanner, or somebody who can talk to people with different epistemological stances, it's really important. I'm mentioning a lot of challenges, but the point is that because of this diversity, there's an opportunity for creativity if you harness it in a way, in an appropriate way. You can bring together these different ideas to find the right solutions in the context. And lastly, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. It's not just about assessing causality impact. It's also about focusing on the collaboration and the process of collaborating to understand what works and what doesn't. So the simple point is that projects should have that incorporated as a core component. I'll stop at that because I'm running over time. Thank you so much. Oh, and yes, I should thank everybody else in the project, including Adrian Martin, June, and all of the people who helped me in my research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. That was a very useful, extremely useful presentation. And so from our chat, we can see a lot of activities and questions for the two presenters. And because of the time, maybe we'll have 2 questions, one for Frank and one for Alex. I'll let you take a break first. So Frank, one question from David is, in agriculture, innovation systems approach remains largely theoretical in Africa because many development practitioners or research do not have adequate skills and experience to broker actors in the innovation networks. What are your thoughts on this capacity building need? And we'd love to hear from your experience at Malawi.
Yeah, thank you very much, David. It's a good question. Yes, I would agree with that, that indeed IS has more remained of theoretical and a label in Africa, mainly because of capacity issues. So what methods should we use and how should we use them? What tools do we have available for us to operationalize the IS? How do we integrate it in our universities so that the generation that is coming, the future generation in agriculture, have a grasp and a theoretical and practical grasp of the IS? Easy the questions that we need to address. So you find that yes, people will use terms like platforms, people will use terms like innovation systems, yet in practice, they're still going back to technology transfer because it's the issue of capacity issues. You find that even if you are doing research and you want to capture information about innovation system, people will tend to align themselves just following literature. They will read and align themselves in terms of literature, what IS does, but in reality, it's not actually IS when you observe critically. It's still top-down. So yes, we are still more of a theoretical than practical.
Thank you, Frank, for that answer. And building on that, Alex, in your presentation, you mentioned a lot of the processes required and some of the collaborative attitudes to have dialogues. One question from Marcos is, in this year, especially during the pandemic, how new technologies like video calls can help to reduce costs of collaboration and democratize the process?
Yes, those are two very important points. The first thing I'll mention is that technology is wonderful and has allowed Sentinel to maintain and foster dialogues across borders, both formal and informal. Though it is more challenging to have informal discussions, the usual coffee break that when it's not like you plan for it. It just happens on the day of when you're in the conference hall, for example. But it's more challenging now. But these sorts of informal discussions are really important. But nonetheless, yes, technology allows to remediate some of those barriers to meeting people in person. But the other point I want to mention is that it's very useful, especially when you've had the opportunity to build genuine human connections beforehand. So Sentinel started before the pandemic. Most of the partners that are working on the project now remotely, they've had many opportunities before to get to know each other. So when they started using Zoom and other platforms, it was easier for them. They didn't have to get to know someone remotely. And then was there another point to that? How to democratize, I think.
Yes. How does technology help democratize and reduce the cost of the process? For example, people
reducing
conference.
Yeah, exactly. So reducing the cost, exactly. I mean, we've seen this in webinar. We can reach a much greater audience with that. I think we would have harnessed webinars anyway with the work that we're doing with David at Root Forum to reach out to all of the partner universities. It's a fantastic platform, but now it's like the standard. And you have conferences, like there was a conference in Bangladesh a couple of weeks ago, Gobeshona conference. It was amazing how many people they reached across the world. Even though, in previous instances, few people could travel to Bangladesh. So yeah, reducing the cost of travel, it's not just the cost, it's the carbon footprint and all the consumption that goes with traveling. Universities often don't pay enough attention to that, but universities in the United Kingdom, the United States and the North have massive, massive carbon footprints. So for that reason alone, so I think that's fantastic. Yeah, we should continue doing that. And I think the future is some sort of a blended approach when you do have some meetings in person, but you rely on technology as well.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Alex. So we have very little time for this first theme, so let's save some of these questions for our breakout discussion, and we'll move forward to our second theme. So I would like to introduce Marcos to introduce the second theme and the speakers. Marcos.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Yes, so for the second theme, we will look at what are the research impacts. So from research to action beyond academia, and what are the best practices, policies, and the paths forward to get this impact. So I think it's really important for the kind of research that we are doing around the FaNSI program, most of the people that they are here today, and we need to work very close with different stakeholders to get our research tested as fast as possible and implemented in the field. So I think that most of our impact will not be in how we will be able to improve people's livelihood, and rather than share just our latest paper on Twitter. So I think we got two fantastic speakers to explain on this kind of impact that we have. So we have first Dr. Angela Gerald McKindy, who is an assistant lecturer at the Nelson Mandela African Institution of Science and Technology, and she works closely with smallholder farmers on pest management and agroecological intensification. And the title of her talk is Farmers Center Sustainable Crop and Pest Management in Tanzania. And I hope she will tell us how critical it is to get the stakeholders involved in scientific research and to get some practical findings and to implement new research questions that come from these interactions. And our second speaker is Dr. Stephen Harted, is a research fellow in organic chemistry and chemical ecology at the Natural Resource Institute. And his main research is focused in finding and isolating and making semiochemicals, such as insect pheromones, and that they are used for pest control and sustainable agriculture. And he's one of our Pint of Science stars, and you can still see his great talk in YouTube. And the title of his talk is Melding Society, Industry and Academia, a Fool's Errand. I hope not. And the floor is yours. First, Angela, if you can share your screen.
Yes, good day to everyone. Thank you very much, the FaNSI team and June and the colleagues for the preparation and for inviting me. So I will talk about how research can be connected actually beyond the academic settings. And my case is on the farmer-centered pest management in Tanzania. Frank has said it right when he was describing the characteristics of farmers that we're dealing with. We have people who have, we are perceiving them as having less knowledge, less technology, and the people who we want to upgrade when we do our research works. So I'm having a, where am I going? Sorry about that. No problem,
just to start the slides again.
Yeah, so I will try to speak on the context of research because this is what we are doing, but we always wish that our research works connects us with the community and helps us to really reach the problems and solve them in a way that they bring more impact. So Like said earlier, my research is focusing on pest management, on common beans and maize farming systems in the small-scale farming communities. And what we do is a two-way traffic. One side of it is the farmers' field and farmers' engagement, where we all need to identify problems. So farmers get involved in research. They talk to researchers as if they were also going to the lab at some point, because they need to really understand how the problems are going to be solved. And they share their experiences and their insights. So in the picture on the top right, these are farmers who are in the field and who are having their own challenges, and they have their own observations, but they're looking forward to talk to researchers on how they're going to solve these problems, these challenges. And on the other hand, this is the research work going on in the lab in a very controlled experiment, where a master, a PhD student, under supervision of experts, professors, try to take up problems from the field into the lab with the aim of bringing feedbacks. This is how, when we do that, we really the fact that farmers have to lead, they have to really share their agenda, and the agenda has to be really honored, because that's where the challenges emanate. But also, every aspect of the research, every feedback, every result of the research must reflect the problem that was stated in the beginning. But before doing that, before embarking into research, we need to understand, we harmonize the situation. We have to learn together, we need to plan together, and we need to practice together. This is now in the context of pest management in Tanzania, where we know that using plant extract is a safer way as compared to synthetics, but we use plants that are readily available under farmers' conditions. They're available on their fields, they're available on roadsides, in the fences around the houses. But there's a good way, a very scientifically proven way, that the plants can be used for better results in the pest management aspect. Therefore, the issue isn't for researchers to just implement and test whether they work or not, but it is to understand altogether how they are going to work and to test how they are going to work. Therefore, by doing this, we need to learn, and then to understand the main goal, and then to understand the plan on how we're going to implement. A good example now here is the training in the very beginning of the project. And what we need to understand here is how to prepare plants, what are the do's and don'ts in the preparation, let's say, in harvesting, in drying, in grinding, in extraction, in the application, and how are we planning the monitoring. So it is not just applying and see whether it works, it doesn't work, but it is to really set up experiments and see how things work. And if they don't work, we have to really come back and think of why they didn't work. Is there anything else we can take further for research? So this is the main thing towards learning, planning, and practicing together. So I am just trying to show here practically what is happening in the field. Down in the picture is the woman harvesting some plant materials. And then we have the shade places where she's going to dry. And then we have a grinding machine where we're going to get powders which are packed in the bag, in the bags for storage and ready for the season. So this is a very nice participatory way of doing research, such that from here we do all scientifically proven safe and appropriate ways of preparing these plant extracts, but they're done by farmers. And they're being monitored timely with researchers. And the research helps with other incentives such as grinding machines and things like that. And harvesting, drying, grinding, it is just someone coming to say, now you have to to harvest, you have to go grind, you have to dry, but it evolved. We started by just harvesting, some people were pounding, some were boiling and all that, and we came to learn what are the best ways we do. How are simple things going to help us, such as using a grinder rather than using a molten and pestle and things like that. Therefore, participation has brought us together, first of all, and they help us learn more as we go on. Probably next time we'll have an industry out of this collaboration, and this will be very nice for us. Then, I was talking about the issue of planning and working together, but then after we work together, we really need to sit down and evaluate together. So after experiments, I'll tell you an example of how we do experiments. So each farmer would have a field. We have normal fields. Every farmer has her own field. But in order to test whether a certain botanical works or it doesn't work, or how it behaves at a certain point or a certain crop or a certain pest, one has to test. Therefore, we could set aside a 5 by 5 meters plot, maybe 2 or 3 of them, depending on how a farmer would wish to test his or her extract. Then one plot is spread by something desirable, another one is left sprayed or spread by a synthetic pesticide, and the rest of the field is left to be handled as a farmer would just handle. And then a research assistant would come, collect some systematic data like researchers, because we need publications at some point. But a farmer would also evaluate. And in the end, this is what we do. Coming together, see the results. These are the results from statistical analysis, but these are the observations that I made from the field. Afterwards, we get opinions, and then we get some ways forward. Therefore, out of doing all this, we are seeing that we are improving. Smallholder farmers, we are seeing they have a very huge capacity, very huge knowledge. And I think we weren't looking for them or exploiting them quite efficiently. Because in the beginning, actually, when you approach farmers and you would wish to work with them, they would be very receptive of everything. You are a researcher, you know a lot of things, you work on sophisticated and complex things. So when you say plants do work better, so try them, they'll just do it. They work, they don't work, that's okay. But now we are seeing a capacity built on ourselves, researchers, on how to handle communities when we do research, but also for farmers themselves. One big picture is me talking to FAO on botanicals and how we should talk to farmers on using their local knowledge on pest management. That's capacity building on its own. But the other picture on the left, the bottom, is an online webinar, a Zoom call going on. And these are farmers seated behind. And what they are going to do here is to share the experiences, to share the challenges, and to hear from others. Therefore, we're seeing a lot of...
you have one minute more?
Thank you very much. So we are seeing a lot of prospects, including commercialization aspects and networking. And we have managed to offer user-friendly resources, such as simple handouts, video links in different languages. And we are seeing inspirations working beyond that, because we are getting lots of insights, new research ideas, and new endeavors, actually. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Angela. Very nice presentation. Very good example of how we can involve farmers in our research. I think we go with our next speaker, Steve. When you're ready.
Just a sec. Can everyone see that?
Yes. Very good.
All right. Thank you very much, Marcus. And yes, this is my talk, Melding Society, Industry and Academia, a Fool's Errand. Okay, yeah. So we've been talking a lot about something called impact. And I feel like possibly every talk that was given at this conference probably mentions it at some point. And this can mean a lot of different things, including outreach outside academia. But in my head, at least, I've split it into 4 different aspects. So we have government impact, academic impact, commercial impact, and societal impact. I'm not really going to be talking about governmental impact in this talk, mostly because I don't have too much experience in it. But I think everyone knows how important changing government policy and how powerful an effect that can have. But sort of what metrics we use for academic impacts, I think everyone is familiar with these and sort of the measurements we use. Commercial, I think Angela did a very nice job of introducing some of these things, but that's also something that we can measure very easily or much easier. Whereas societal impact, I feel like we don't necessarily have these metrics to measure against, like what impact we're having on general society. But to give some of my personal experience in the commercial realm, I've been at the NRI for about 3.5 years now. And during my time, I've sort of interacted with multiple different companies. So we had integrated pest management projects on fruit flies, controlling their population. A similar project, but this time it was on weevils, hylobius weevils. And they were a pest for tree nurseries in Scotland and other places in Europe. We're in a completely sort of different realm here. We have a sensor that we're trying to develop using semiochemicals given off by soil to see how healthy it is. And finally, a combination biopesticide where we're trying to basically slap 2 pesticides together as an alternative to sort of more traditional chemical pesticides. And under sort of commercial impacts, I'm sort of including like skills training and that type of stuff. This was done by Gonzalo, who I think is in the call somewhere, and other people from the molecular biology group. And they did like a training workshop through this connected virus network. And in the bottom right here, we have myself and a couple of other people from chemical ecology who attended this this event organized by NIAB, which was called Fruit Focus. And we were interacting with like different agricultural people associated with agriculture in some way. So I personally include all of this under commercial impacts, and so of what Angela was talking about with engaging in smallholder farmers and all the rest of it, I would sort of include under this as opposed to societal impact. And I was supposed to talk about this with this slide, but hey, so moving on. So it's already got the big up already, Pint of Science, which was also from my own experience. And initially this was just supposed to be in a pub, maybe 20, 30 people or something, fairly low scale. Then COVID-19 hit and it got delayed and ended up being an online streaming event. And I believe someone's already put the link in the chat if you want to find out about pheromones and all that good stuff. But it was also done by Sarah Arnold and Connor Walsh, who narrated the whole thing. Sort of in a similar vein, the research group leader for chemical ecology, Phil Stevenson, actually did a TEDx talk, which is quite short. I'll probably put the link into the chat if people want to watch that as well. Sort of similar idea about pest management and pollinators and things like that. And possibly the best example I've seen of trying to engage society was done by Francis Hawkes, who is also in the chat somewhere. And this was the Wetland Life exhibition. And they actually hired out this hall. It was on Exhibition Road, which has got a lot of the sort of big museums in London. And they had all these displays and everything, and they even had a live chat going on to some artists that worked on the project. And this was all about sort of these wetlands that we have in the UK. And some of them are endangered, and people don't necessarily know the biodiversity that are in these. And this was sort of trying to engage the public and raise awareness about these things. And I think Francis is actually releasing a paper about the interdisciplinary nature of this, or maybe transdisciplinary, depending on how Alexandra defines it. And this is kind of going back to the title of the talk and why I chose it. I didn't necessarily think of a good example where I could say that all three of these have come together into one project. Not to say that it doesn't exist. I'm sure somebody somewhere has a good example of this. Partially this might be because sort of commercial factors, IP control, copyright, and all the rest of it sort of prohibits some of these others. The closest I could think of is some of the, you know, like the big grants, say like FaNSI and things like that, where you would definitely have impacts in these three areas under the umbrella, but maybe sort of one research project wouldn't necessarily cover all three. But it might be something to discuss during the in the chat that we'll have later. So if everyone in this call would want to get involved in this, how would you do it? Or to put it another way, is Stephen ever going to tell us anything useful? Well, you may already have something in your institution, wherever you happen to work, whether it's a university or something similar. So at the NRI, we have a communications division with Lyndon and Gillian here, and Caroline Troy, who does the sort of more social media type stuff. And they convinced the BBC to come and have a look at our work. And this is Lionel and Francis giving some interviews on the mosquito work. We also, in the university, do these great talks, which are free for the public. So there might be very similar things already going on that you can get involved in. But if you want to reach outside this sort of bubble, my best advice is to either join a special interest group or a society. So in this example, it's the Royal Society of Chemistry, because I'm a chemist and I'm a member. But I also sit on the committee for the local section, which is the Kent section in the UK, and the agricultural special interest group. And just to give an example of what that can do is in 2019, which seems a long time ago now, it was the International Year of the Periodic Table, apparently. And the Royal Society of Chemistry held a lot of different events in different schools all across the country, mostly coming up with these funky different designs for the periodic table. And for our part in Kent, we held an event in Whitstable, tried to engage the public, had a few different sort of talks and different things going on, including some board games for the kids to play, and maybe some of the adults too. But it certainly doesn't need to be chemistry based. My friend and colleague Tori Woolley attended this New Scientist Live, which seemed to be mostly her trying to scare school kids with giant insects. But that was organized through the Royal Entomological Society. And there should be a society for whatever your particular focus is. And I did realize at this point this was a little bit UK focused. So I did try to have a look whether there was the equivalents in other countries. And I did find this FaSC, which was a Federation of African Societies of Chemistry. So I hope this advice does apply to everybody and not just people from the UK. And thank you for listening. And I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Stephen. You just need the 10 minutes. Looks that you practice quite.
Was it exactly 10 minutes?
Exactly 10 minutes. So very good. I think we have a few questions. I will start with the a question to Angela from Fiorella. This asking, how much do participatory process extend the timeline of the project in your experience, and how much resource should be allocated? So yeah, when you involve the farmers in the research, probably you need to take more time, or taking account that it will take longer. What is your experience?
Okay, yeah, so it's a good question. Really, it is not easy in the beginning, based on the fact that the farmers' perception of research is that they were not part of it. Research is for researchers, and they have their own way of doing it. Therefore, bringing them together, making them understand the main goal and the fact that they are really the main stakeholders of research takes time. Therefore, what we would need as key resources is expertise and understanding. We need social expertise to help people organize, align, get motivated, and facilitated together to understand the common goal in order to do research. And something else that I am noticing in our project area is really the fact that everyone really works for benefit. So most of the farmers would just say, okay, now you brought when is the training? Because you're going, we're coming, getting some allowances and all that. But whenever we have, for example, for botanicals now, there's a chance for commercialization, a chance for getting some income out of adopting the technology. That would be a very nice resource. Therefore, business expertise is also another resource that would be very helpful. Therefore, it doesn't take much time whenever there's an understanding. It really takes time whenever we don't understand each other. Farmers understand. Otherwise, researchers understand other things. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And just a quick question for Steve. Yeah, how do you tackle? You were talking of maybe some examples that probably are individual in one discipline, but how do you tackle societal impact in transdisciplinary research? And what do you think that could be more challenging?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so it's how do you tackle societal impact in transdisciplinary research, and which can be more challenging given the different societies, communication outlets? As I say, when you have just one society, for example, chemistry, but what happens when you mix with entomology or soil science or whatever?
Yeah, well, personally, I think it's difficult enough with one. And there, like I said, there isn't necessarily a metric in any discipline. I mean, possibly the closest you can come to it is maybe a sort of some kind of questionnaire where sort of the general public is asked whether they know about something. So certainly, I'm not sure if it's any more or less difficult because it's already difficult. So yeah, I guess that would be my answer. It's already difficult enough.
Yeah, I don't know if sometimes maybe with when you just put to the public the problem more than the different solutions. I'm thinking now about, for example, climate change or things, but you need really expertise from many different backgrounds, and how that it looks that is getting society getting involved in, at least in the problem. I'm not sure if in the research behind or the solutions.
It did occur to me while I was doing these lecture slides that societal engagement could be considered of differing importance depending on the subject. So climate science, for example, I would say societal engagement is maybe a lot more important than, say, well, for my own work in pheromones and stuff. I'm not sure how many people gain from learning about pheromones. I'm sure it's interesting. But sort of the more people that know about climate science is very important.
Okay, thank you. I think we don't have more time. Now we will go soon to the breakout rooms, but
Yes.
you can.
Thank you, Marcos. Thank you, Stephen. So now, because we're running a little bit behind, we'll move straight into our breakout group discussions in the next 10-15 minutes. And this time, it is to share some of your own experience in interdisciplinary research and partnerships and translating research to have an impact beyond academia. So we really want to hear from you. So please feel free to participate and discuss informally. And also we want to hear if you have any challenges that you had come across in the working on these types of research as early career researchers. So in a minute, you will be transported to one of the 4 rooms randomly and with speakers in each room. There will be 2 facilitators to help with the discussion. And there will be the notes taken from your discussion. And the goal is to put all your inputs together and share this feedback after the session back to you. So please bear with us as Winnie, our technical support, will now magically transport us to our 4 breakout rooms. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a active and fruitful discussion in the breakout groups. So we'll now have a few minutes to recap one highlight from each room. And then Fiorella, please keep moderating us, and then let us know when we are taking a bit too long. And then Fiorella, we will go into a general discussion if you like. Or should we just go into the general discussion now?
We can do the 1 minute from each room very quickly, and then, well, 1 minute each, and then then maybe get a sense of what were the main themes that people have discussed, and then open to the main conversation.
So please, the facilitators from each room, from room 1 to Fiorella will let them know to start, and I will press the button for this timer to make us more dynamic. Over to you, Fiorella and Marcos.
Okay. Yeah, Marcos.
Yeah, I think I start with the first room. It was
You could speak a bit louder, sorry.
Yes, can you hear me now? Better?
A little better.
Okay, let's see if it's working better.
Yes, much better, thanks.
Yeah, so we were talking about how to start these collaborations, and sometimes we talk about that taboos that in some countries they are not taboo anymore, but in others still. For example, meetings where you have female and male, and how the females try to just agree with what the male says, or not really trying to work, or they don't have the weight in the conversation that they should have. And the same with researchers coming from abroad to some of the developing countries, that they get a very good warm welcoming, and everyone agrees with what they say. But probably we need to step back at some point and say why everyone is agrees with me, why we don't get challenging for these scientists that are our partners. Probably we need to find ways that we both challenge each other. And yeah, I think
great. Thank you.
Enough.
Yeah, that's great. Perfect. So, Fiorella, I think it's my turn, isn't it? Yes. Let me start again. So in our discussion, we one highlight was that it's very hard for researchers who are in their early career to learn new skills from a totally different discipline in order to work well in a transdisciplinary setting. And so there's this tension between, you know, getting a paying research position where you're expected to have grants and proposals written as an expert, but then you want to also bring in new skills that will depend on teammates and partners to bring that transdisciplinary skill set into a project. So we recognize some of this tension about making a living and wanting to learn different qualities and skills from different disciplines.
Brilliant. Wow, bang on time. So now we have room 3 with either Lionel or Stefania.
With me, Stefania. We talk about the importance of involving and engaging with the community, with the local people, in order to have a wider and impactful research. Going where the problems are to understand them properly and not just stay in our office. Sorry. Then we discuss about the time and funding constraints that we do have. And then one participator pointed out the importance of the collaboration with companies or industry in order to increase fundings and also implementing the research and the results we have also after finishing the project. A problem can be that we are researchers and we need to write papers, and that there are a lot of constraints we found out. So I don't know if I'm get stuck. I don't know if I have finished my minutes. So yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stefania. And now, last but not least, we have Francis from room 4.
Thank you. Yeah, we had an interesting conversation about engagement and participation of wider society. And I think one of the key points that came from that conversation is that it's an opportunity for two-way conversation. It's not just a place where a researcher can transmit information about their project or about the work that they're doing, why they're doing it, why it's important for a particular community. It's a really valuable opportunity for that community to talk to us as we're doing that activity, so we can learn from them, because the chances are they're experiencing the problems that we're trying to solve, and they may have, and probably do have, a whole range of possible solutions that they could table that we could learn a lot from. And then the other part that we were really talking about was interdisciplinarity and how we might foster greater interdisciplinarity. And we felt that really probably had to come from embedding learning about different methodologies and the value of different evidence that they produce, whilst we're still learning generally. So in either undergraduate or so that we get those experiences to have the conversations with collaborators later on.
Amazing. Thank you very, very much. I mean, this is all has been very, very exciting to hear everyone's, our speakers for sharing with us their experience in putting in practice all this, different methods, participatory methods, mixed methods, and innovative ways to interact with the academia and also across different disciplines. We had sent you out a short Google poll. When I checked it last time, we had 38 respondents, so thank you so much for filling it in. And we asked you also what type of conversations you wanted to hear today in the session. And we, given a limited time, we kind of decided to focus on the difficulty of crossing boundaries between disciplines within your PhD, within project grants, and also later in your academic career. And then the other theme that was very much popular in the survey was how to translate research into actions, and what are the practical ways that we can do that with a variety of sectors. So we hope with this network in the future to address the other activities and desires to kind of proceed and evolve in our academic practice. A very trendy option was basically to improve the strategies to identify funding and collaborations, not only funding for your own project, but also how to make meaningful funding across North-South North-South collaboration. Another one was more linked to specific research seminars to discuss research finding methods and specific thematic areas. We had a very large thematic interest in the survey that range from genomic to hidden hunger and gender and food security. Then other group of interests were mainly linked to career development, so mentorships, career development training, guidance to navigate academic career, also more of a soft skill, how to balance life and work commitments. And then some others were looking at more sharing information on vacancies and postdocs for later on in the career, and others and other groups of skills of actions were linked to academic writing, especially for high impact journals, but also grant writing workshops that could be quite interesting to organize. And 87% of the respondents actually we're looking at that type of actions that the network can take on in the future. And also funding, the information also on funding opportunities, skill development, attending conferences, and research partnerships. Then to link to what Francis was saying at the very end, a large proportion of our respondents also mentioned the peer-to-peer introduction of specific disciplines. So how can we all bring our own disciplinary interest and expertise and explain what are the methods, what are the terminologies that we can understand better and navigate across disciplines. And then very importantly that was added into the survey was how can we really create meaningful and winning North-South partnerships. And I think all the presentations today tackle that in very successful and meaningful way and very different way. So as June mentioned, we will consolidate these outcomes from the survey, as well as what we have discussed today in this session, and we will share it with you, those of you who have expressed interest to be part of the network. And we'll hope to organize some activities later in the year. And I will pass it now to June.
Thanks, Fiorella. Thank you for that really nice recap and to do the analytics from our Google poll. So just to wrap up, as I know we're running a little late, the aim for today's session is really to engage you, early career researchers, in discussions that cut across the 4 research themes in the Food and Nutrition Security Initiative. And these themes have been presented throughout the week, and you can see them below. And from our presentations and discussions today, we are becoming more aware of the need for engaging multiple stakeholders, transdisciplinary thinking and practice, and learning methods across disciplines in order to build lasting capacity and co-produce knowledge in both Global North and Global South research. So as we're shaping and discovering new ways of doing our own research, using research to impact different societal causes, I hope you found this session helpful and inspiring as I have. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the organizers, facilitators, and especially our presenters who contributed today to our session. And thank you for you as participants for discussing with us some of your needs and what you look for in a early career researcher network. We look forward to sending you more updates on future early career researcher events, and we will have the presentations from today's session put in one place where we can share a link for you to access afterwards. Thank you very much and have a great evening.